Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Fina here from Fina Reads. This time with the long version of the this or that tag that I got tagged in by Josh over at Red Fury. I did a short, like rapid fire version for one of my shorts a while ago, but I knew it would be some time till I actually get this video out, so I decided to do, that rapid fire version and then a longer version later on. So if you don't want to listen to me ramble on about these answers, I'll link the short version down below because the answers are going to be the same. I'll just add a little bit more color to it now. All right, the first question is paperback or hardback, and generally I think I like floppy paperbacks better. Like, I mean, nothing beats this, right? But hardbacks feel like higher quality. Plus, I feel you just pay a little bit more and you get like something more solid, especially since trade paperbacks are so expensive nowadays. I mean, even indie, if you buy them through Amazon and whatnot. But I find they are getting more expensive and they are getting closer to the hardback price. So for a little bit more, I get like a higher quality book. But then from a reading experience, I definitely prefer paperbacks more. But then it has to be like those big floppy paperbacks. I do not like mass market. Or it has to be the British paperbacks. And there I don't mind if it's the bigger ones or the smaller ones. And German paperbacks are also fine. They're tighter bound than trade paperbacks, but they are not as tight and flimsy as mass market paperbacks. Next question is Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. And like, I'm not a huge fan of both of these series, but Harry Potter would win at a long shot. I think Harry Potter is way more fun, more approachable. I just love this whole concept of magical school, and she just created a great world. Again, fully knowing, I put one of my TBRs or wrap-ups in here where I talked a little bit about Lord of the Rings because I'm reading it right now. I acknowledge what it did for the genre. I just find it boring. Like, it's just walking around and it's kind of a history lesson. And funny, Amanda and I talked about it in the comments of the same video, and it feels a little bit like that he invented a language, or he invented like a race and a history of a world and then wrote a book for it so he could justify being nerdy and, inventing a language. And I can totally see that because that's sometimes how Lord of the Rings reads. So yeah, no, Harry Potter, especially when it comes to the movies, I definitely prefer the Harry Potter movies over the Lord of the Rings movies. Real books or ebooks? Ebooks are real books too. But I think this means physical book or ebook. And I'm still leaning more towards physical book, but I'm getting friendlier with ebooks. I am getting better with reading ebooks, and I don't mind it as much anymore. So I found a good setting with my Kindle and my iPad that I have an iPad mini that I use for reading. And I found a good setting there where, it doesn't hurt so much on the eyes, but especially when I had a long day in front of the computer, I definitely prefer physical books because just this looking at the screen gets very exhausting after a long, long day. Buying books or borrowing? I definitely buy more. I should borrow more. I don't know. It's just what it is. I definitely have way too many books, and I constantly run into the issue that I have stacks everywhere, and then at one point I clean those up and somehow figure out how they fit again into the shelf. So I'm reorganizing my shelves way more often than I should, and then it's like jam-packed again, and then I'm buying 10 more books, and the whole cycle starts again. So I definitely need to get better at borrowing books and using my library because I don't need to own every book. I really don't. If I would own only my favorites, that would be totally fine, especially since I tend to buy books and then it takes me forever to read them. So I still have so many unread physical books in my house that it's just ridiculous. And it's getting to a point where I just have to stop doing that because I will never read through all of this. And it makes me sad because I bought them for a reason. So I actually started with creating a wish list on my Amazon that says available in library. So before I buy a book, I look it up in my library app and then I throw it into that wish list. So at one point, I can go into this list and see, oh, there's a book that I want to read right now. Then I can just borrow it from the library. And if I love it, I can then buy it. Next question is about read in bed or read in a chair. Honestly, I don't mind. I actually got a reading chair, and I'm pointing there because it's over there, specifically for my new book corner, and I love it. And especially on the weekends in the morning when I get up early and my husband is still sleeping, I love cuddling up in the chair, wrapping myself in a blanket and then just reading till he wakes up. But I also love to go to bed at night. Like I go to bed at 8 or 9 and then just sit there for an hour or two and read. I love it. Library or bookstore, that goes hand in hand with the question of owning a book versus borrowing it. Similar answer. I should definitely use my library more just from the ambiance. I love both. I don't have a great bookstore here. The only thing that I have really is a Barnes & Noble's and an overpriced used bookstore that just increased their prices again. And, I understand small businesses and need to stay in business, but it's ridiculous where they are going. Anyway, that's a rant for a different time. So that's the only bookstore. I have half an hour away. I have a Barnes & Noble's. That's it. And then Amazon. But I love going through bookstores. And that is something that I'm really missing out of Germany. I love going to the bookstore over there, and we had a lot of bookstores everywhere where I lived. There were always a lot of bookstores, and even the big chain bookstores where, I don't know, there was just something. I could spend hours in there and just go through and watch all the things. Barnes & Noble's is not as nice as those bookstores, and I sometimes really miss it. Yeah, so, long answer. That wasn't really an answer, but you know what I mean. Nonfiction or fiction? So for enjoyment, mostly really fiction. There are some fiction categories that I'm interested in. There's some biographies, like some history books that I'm reading, or stuff about mental health that I'm really interested in. I read more nonfiction for work, obviously. So things like how to be a good manager, women in leadership, those kind of things. But generally, when it comes to numbers, hands down, fiction. Print or audio? Definitely print. I have a hard time focusing when I listen to an audiobook. So audio only works for me, or only works well for me, I should say, if I've read the book before and I know what's happening, or if it's a book I'm not super invested in and I don't mind if I miss parts of it, because I definitely miss stuff when I just listen to the audiobook. I cannot just sit there and listen, then I fall asleep. And if I do something else, it has to be something that allows me to listen to it and doesn't take the focus away. So I can color while I listen to audiobook, or I can fold laundry while I listen to an audiobook. But that's really quickly where it ends. So I have a hard time being in the headspace for just listening to an audiobook, which is why I don't do it very often, and then in very selected manners. Like when I reread the Green Rider series, that was fine. I had no issue listening to the Green Rider books, just because I've read them so often that I pretty much know what's happening. But a new book, and especially a new fantasy book, difficult for me, very difficult. New book or old book? Generally, I don't mind, but if it's an old book, it cannot be completely run down. These, when you read a Mars Market paperback once and it looks like you ran over it with a car. I don't want old, unless I did it. Like when I destroyed a book this way, or read a book and it looks like this, that's fine, I don't mind it. But if it's a used book, I tend to stay away from rundown, or where the dust cover is ripped on hardcovers, or when you have stains on it. No, then I start, my imagination then starts on what type stains it could be, and then it gets really nasty really quickly. And then Or some old books have a very specific smell, and I don't like that. I like old book smell, but it has to be a high quality book for it to smell the right way. If it's like a cheap binding or cheap glue, or one of those mass market paperbacks, they smell just moldy at one point, and I can't. Short chapters or long, and I have to copy Josh's answer here because it really depends on the book. I don't mind either, but it depends on if it fits the story. Like, I'm currently reading Aestus by S.C. Adwell, and that has very short chapters, but it works for the pacing, whereas Malazan has rather long chapters, and they work fine for Malazan, and I don't mind either. Like, I really don't have a preference. I never actually thought about having that as a preference. All right, and that leads me to the tag. So in the short, I tagged Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads, I tagged Sarah from Sarah Fair Reads, and I tagged Kate from The Literary Apothecary. If you guys haven't done it yet, I'm tagging you again. You're in. And then in addition, I kind of leave it open to you guys. I think it's a fun one to do like in a rapid fire version to just get quick answers out. But if you want to do the tag, go do it. Seriously, go do that. And then in particular, I tag Theo from Rekindled Reader. I'm tagging... Who hasn't done this tag yet? Jimmy Nuts. I haven't tagged him in anything in a while. And I'm tagging Books with Genghis Khan. I hope you three haven't done it yet. So, there you go. Well, thanks so much for joining me as I'm going through this tag. I really enjoyed this. This was a fun one to think through, you know, what would you pick if you had to? Sorry that some of those were not really answers. You know, I make my own rules. I'm a rebel. What can I say? Well, a tiny rebel sometimes, just a little bit. All right, if you like my answers and if you want to hear more of my ramblings that I do on a regular basis, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to like the video. And then I hope you have a great rest of your day and that I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye!